In this lesson, you'll begin cutting a teaser using the cut page. The cut page, unlike its older and more mature sibling, the edit page, is primarily designed for fast turnaround editing. With its simplified user interface and economical approach to common editing tasks, the cut page is aimed squarely at content creators who produce short-form content like video blogs, online promos, and news segments. Before we begin, I want to point out that I designed this tutorial as a hands-on experience, meaning that you'll get the most from this training if you follow along with me using our provided media. If you take the time to engage the training in this manner, I can assure you that you'll be building the confidence you need for jumping into Resolve and start creating your own projects. If you haven't downloaded the project media from the Ripple Player dashboard, now would be a great time to do that. Start by launching DaVinci Resolve. If you're on a Mac, you can launch it from the dock or the Applications menu. If you're using a Windows machine, use the Start menu. Throughout the tutorial, I often refer to keyboard shortcuts. I do my best to call out the shortcuts for both Mac and PC users, but it's possible that because of my ingrained Mac mindset and the sheer scope of this tutorial, I might on occasion only call out Mac-only shortcuts. But there's a simple solution. In the Mac version of Resolve, there are two keyboard modifiers that are quite common: the Command key and the Option key. For example, to copy a clip, I'll say, press Command-C. If you're a Windows user, you'll substitute the Control key. So Control-C would be the equivalent in Windows. The second modifier is the Option key. So if you hear me say, press Option-S to create a serial node, you would press Alt-S to create the serial node. Before you can do anything in Resolve, you'll have to create a project or open a pre-existing one. If this is the first time you've opened Resolve, this is the window you'll see first. If you have Resolve open and you don't see this window, that means you've gotten past this window by opening a project. If you're in the second group, reopen this window by clicking the Home button in the lower right corner of the UI, or press Shift-1. We're going to create a new project by clicking the New Project button. Name the project Nelson Teaser 1 and click Create. DaVinci Resolve opens to the last page you were using. Click the Cut Page button. Once you create the project, the name of the project you'll be working on appears at the top of the window. You'll be creating a short teaser for a science fiction show centering around a ghost town called Nelson. If you open the Project Manager window again, you'll see the project icon with the name of the project you just created. The cut page is organized into three main areas: the media pool for importing and organizing your media, the viewer for switching between your clips and your timeline, and the toolbar for performing edits and adding transitions. The simplest way to add media to the project is drag and drop. Locate the Resolve Project Files folder you downloaded, then select the Alien Hunter folder, then the Teaser 1 folder. Inside are the clips we'll be working with. I've also pre-organized some of the clips into folders. Drag the Teaser 1 folder into the media pool. All the clips are imported, but without honoring the subfolders I created in the Mac Finder. To import the media while honoring the folder structures of your computer's file system, you'll have to do this another way. Press Command-Z to undo, or Control-Z on Windows. In the upper left of the media pool, click the Import Media Folder button. Navigate to the Alien Hunter folder, then select the Teaser 1 folder and click Open. The clips are imported and the two subfolders as well. Folders in Resolve are called bins. To view the contents of a bin, double-click it. A breadcrumb trail of the bin hierarchy appears in the upper left of the media pool. To get to the top-level bin, click on the word Master. Every project you work on in Resolve contains a master bin that stores all other bins. Master bins cannot therefore be deleted or renamed. Now you can see the Teaser 1 parent folder that we imported from our computer's file system. Double-click that bin, and we're back to where we started. Another way to view the contents of a bin is using the Bin List menu. Select Music and Photos to view all the clips in that bin, then Multicam to view all the clips in that bin. You can also get to the master bin from this menu. We'll be working inside the Teaser 1 bin, so select that one. You can further organize your media by creating more sub-bins. Right-click anywhere in the empty gray area and choose New Bin from the menu. Name this bin B-Roll. Select all the clips except the interview clip, then drag them into this bin. Select this bin from the bins list to view its contents. In the upper right, you can sort your media by different criteria: timecode, camera name, and other metadata assigned to clips. Let's leave the sorting method to clip name. Select the master bin from the bin list. Right-click in the bin and choose Create New Timeline or press Command-N or Control-N on Windows. A window appears where you can name your timeline and configure other settings such as the number of video and audio tracks you want to include. Name the timeline In Plain Sight. Then click Create. By default, a 1920 by 1080 HD timeline is created. If you wanted to use a different timeline resolution, click the button in the upper right of the viewer to choose another working resolution. From the bins list, select the Teaser 1 bin. Double-click the Alien Hunter 01 clip to load it into the viewer. Use the orange playhead to scrub over the clip. Press I to set an in point at the beginning of the clip. We'll set the out point after he says that Nelson is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. You can do this on the fly. Press the spacebar to play the clip, then press O when you hear him say this. Nelson, Nevada is the epicenter for alien ghost activity. In fact, I would go so far as saying it is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. To add this marked clip to the timeline, just drag and drop it. Before we add our next clip, I want to point out that the viewer performs double duty. When the timeline is active, you'll see clips from the timeline. When the source clip is active, you'll see the source clip. You can tell what's active by these buttons in the upper left of the viewer. Currently, it's a timeline, but if you click this button, it's a source clip. Don't worry about the middle button, we'll get to that shortly. An important keyboard shortcut to remember is the Q key. Pressing Q will toggle between the source clip and the timeline. Make sure the source clip is active. Set an in point before his next sentence. Then set the out point after he says, check out the area. The Navy in 1946 sent a squadron of planes to check out the area, and one way to refine your edit selections is to use the Scratch Trim button. Click and hold the bracket icon at the far left of the clip. The source viewer waveform magnifies the waveform at the endpoint, so you can make more precise trim adjustments. As you drag, you'll be able to hear the filler sound, which we want to remove to make his delivery cleaner. Drag until the endpoint is repositioned between the and the first word of his sentence. Press Escape to exit Scratch Trim mode. You can also use the Scratch Trim button on the out point. To check the accuracy of your edit, hold down the Option or Alt key and press / to play the clip from in to out. The Navy in 1946 sent a squadron of planes to check out the area. Let's edit this clip into the timeline directly after the first one. Move your mouse pointer over the tools below the media pool. A tooltip tells you the edit type for each button. Locate the Append button and click it. As the name of the edit implies, the edit is appended to the end of the last clip, and in our case, the only clip in the timeline. The cut page presents two different timelines, an upper timeline and a lower timeline. The upper timeline displays every clip in your timeline with their relative clip durations. These two blue bars represent the two clips we've edited into the timeline. The lower timeline presents a zoomed-in view of your clips at the playhead location. Drag the upper timeline playhead left or right. The frame directly under the playhead is displayed in the viewer. Press the spacebar to play from the current playhead location. Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. The Navy in 1946. You can trim and move clips in either timeline. The upper timeline gives you a big picture view of your edit in progress, and the lower timeline presents a fixed zoom of your clips for the purpose of making more refined trim adjustments to your clips. One thing that may take some getting used to is that the upper timeline playhead moves over the clips in the timeline as you drag, while the lower timeline playhead stays fixed in the center of the timeline. When you drag on it, the clips scroll below it relative to the current playhead location in the upper timeline. If you prefer to turn this feature off, click the Timeline Options button, then uncheck Fixed Playhead. Now when you drag on the lower timeline playhead, it behaves like the upper timeline playhead. While this mode may feel familiar, the eternally fixed zoom level of the lower timeline will force you to manually scroll over in order to view the rest of the timeline. I prefer the fixed playhead turned on because auto-scrolling always keeps my edit centered in the timeline. Before we move on, let's go back to the Timeline Options window and enable clip names so that they can be easily identified in the timeline as we work with them. Play over the edit point of the Southwest. The Navy in Here we have an obvious jump cut that we'll address by adding some B-roll. In the media browser, open the B-roll bin. To make these clips stand out more in the timeline, let's give them a color. Select them all, then right-click and choose Clip Color. I'm going to use pink, but you can use whatever color you want. In order to view each clip and set in and out markers, enable the Source Clip button, then select any clip to load it into the viewer. Once the clip appears in the viewer, you would then mark the clip using the I and O keys before adding them to the timeline. This is what you did a few moments ago on the interview clip. However, this process can be tedious because it requires you to load each clip individually before marking them. Thankfully, the cut page gives you a mode called Source Tape Mode. Click the Source Tape button in the upper left of the viewer, and every clip in the bin is displayed as a single clip in the viewer. The white lines in the scrubber bar indicate where each clip begins and ends. As you scrub over the clip in the viewer, the clip that the playhead is currently over becomes selected in the media pool. All these clips together have a combined duration of 56 seconds as reported in the upper right of the viewer. If you want to review all your source clips from beginning to end, there's a really useful tool called Fast Review. When you're in source tape mode, all the clips will have varying durations, some shorter and some longer. This is represented by the distances between the white vertical lines in the scrubber bar. Clicking the Fast Review button will slow down playback when the playhead is over a shorter clip, then speed up playback when it's over longer clips. Scrub over the second clip, the one of the old building. As you scrub over the clip, watch the current timecode display. When the playhead is at 8 seconds, mark an endpoint. Move the playhead to 12 seconds and mark an out point. The marked duration is reported in this field above the viewer. You can also enter a precise duration here. Click once on the duration input field, then type out 3, period, and press return. The out point is now set exactly 3 seconds from your endpoint. We want to insert this clip between the two interview segments. But if you look at where the playhead is parked in the timeline, it's not parked at the edit point. The cut page utilizes a feature called a Smart Insert that will edit this clip into the timeline at the nearest cut point. In our case, the nearest cut point is signified by the pulsing green trim brackets and a white animated arrow. In the toolbar, locate the Smart Insert button, then click it. The clip is inserted at the cut point between the two interview clips. Press Q to return to the source tape. Press the down arrow to move the playhead to the beginning of each clip. When you see the rusty cruiser clip, press the X key. An in and out point will be placed at the start and end of the clip. Perform another Smart Insert edit. Now move the playhead over the last clip. Press X, then insert it. Move the playhead before the first B-roll clip and play back. Move the playhead over the middle of the rusty cruiser clip in the timeline. Right-click at the top of the playhead and select the scissors icon to split the clip at the playhead. Move the playhead right or left to view the split. Because the video is contiguous across the cut point, you'll see a dashed vertical line at the edit point. This is called a through edit. If you want to remove a through edit, select the edit point and press delete. We're going to perform the same edit again, but this time using a keyboard shortcut. Press Command B. Now move the playhead over the right half of the clip you just split. Press Q to return to the source tape, then scrub over to the Ford sedan clip. Set an out point at 4 seconds. We'll leave the in point set at the beginning of the clip. We want to replace the clip that the playhead is currently parked over with this marked clip in the source viewer. Locate the Ripple Overwrite button in the toolbar and click it to replace the clip. A Ripple Overwrite is another smart tool in that it just assumes you intend on replacing the entire clip below the playhead, not just a portion of it. So a Ripple Overwrite is really just a clip substitution operation. If the clip on the source viewer is longer or shorter in duration than the clip it's replacing, The clips to the right of the overwritten clip will be rippled later or earlier in time. You can trim the heads and tails of each clip in the upper or lower timeline. Move your cursor over the outgoing edit point of the Rusty Cruiser clip and select it. The out point becomes selected in both timelines, and the viewer presents a visual of the outgoing and incoming clip's available media handles. Drag to the left until the tooltip reads -10 frames. In the left viewer, the film strip shows the 10 frames removed from the outgoing clip, but the incoming clip remains at 0, indicating that we're only performing a one-sided trim. Selecting the middle of the edit point selects both sides of the edit for a two-sided trim. The green bracket on the outgoing clip edit point indicates there's available media beyond the edit point, whereas the red bracket indicates that there's no available media beyond the edit point. However, we can still make this trim if we move the edit point later in time. Drag to the right on the edit point until the trim value reads +12 frames in the film strips. Because both sides of the edit are selected, we're moving the edit point 12 frames later for both the outgoing and incoming clip. In this case, we're lengthening the Cruiser clip while simultaneously shortening the Ford Sedan clip. This type of edit is called a rolling edit. Click the X in the upper left to exit the trim mode. Often when editing dialogue or other voice-driven content, it's helpful to edit with a larger audio waveform. Scrub over the interview clip at the beginning of the timeline. The audio waveform appears below the video, but they're too small for making precise adjustments. Click the Expand Track button in the V1 track header. Using the waveform as a guide, scrub to just before he says, "I would go so far." In fact, I would go so far as saying, then press Command B to split the clip. You can also change the clip order. You can perform this operation in either the upper or lower timeline, but in my experience, I find it easier to use the larger clips in the lower timeline. Drag the second half of the interview clip to the right so that your pointer is over the edit point between the Rusty Cruiser clip and the Ford Sedan clip. When you see a blue insert I-beam, then a ghosted outline of the clip, release your mouse. You can also trim the audio independently of the video to create split edits. A split edit is where the audio leads the picture. Scrub the playhead over the second interview clip. Listen for when he begins the line, "It is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest." I would go so far as saying it is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. Using the waveform as a guide, park the playhead before the word "it." From the Edit Action button in the track header, choose Trim Start to Playhead. The clip is trimmed to the playhead. Press the spacebar to hear the edit. It is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. Select the audio edit point. When you see the green brackets, drag to the left until you reach the start of the audio. Then release your mouse and play back the edit. In fact, I would go so far as saying it is the Bermuda Triangle of the Southwest. Because the audio leads the picture, it creates better continuity between shots while also tightening up the pacing. And speaking of pacing, let's look at an edit mode that will allow you to preserve the timing of your sequence. Scrub over to the water truck clip and split the clip at the halfway point. Let's say that I want to remove the portion of the clip after the cut. If you select it and press delete, the clip is extracted and the next clip is rippled earlier to fill the gap, making the overall duration of the timeline shorter. I'll undo that. In the track header, click the Ripple On button to disable it. With the clip still selected, press delete again, and this time the clip is removed, leaving a gap clip. Gap clips are often useful as timing placeholders for other clips. I'll undo those last two operations. When the Ripple On button is disabled, the trimming behavior also changes. Trim the out point of the water truck clip, and a gap is automatically created as you drag. Let's undo that because there's an alternate method that I prefer. Re-enable the Ripple On button. With Ripple On, whenever you trim the in or out point of a clip, all the clips to the right of the clip you're adjusting will be rippled earlier or later in time, depending on the direction you're dragging. If you need to temporarily override this behavior, press and hold the Option or Alt key before you begin trimming, and a gap clip will be created as you saw when the Ripple On toggle was turned off. I prefer this method because when the mouse is released, the trimming behavior returns to ripple trimming, which also can be performed on the gap clip itself. Select the gap, then press Delete to remove it. Next, we'll turn our attention to creating a multicam edit using the Cut Page's Sync Bin feature. Select the multicam bin. Inside are two interview clips, an A camera and a B camera. To sync these two clips, click the Sync Clips button. You don't need to select them because Resolve assumes you'll be syncing them. A window appears called the Sync Clips window. The first thing you'll notice is that both clips seem to be offset from each other. This is because each camera did not have matching timecode when the scene was shot, but we did start the recording at roughly the same time. The sync window gives you four methods for syncing. You can sync by timecode, audio waveform, in-point, or out-point. Select audio, then click sync. Immediately, the clips are synchronized via their audio waveforms. Let's quickly check our sync by playing the clip. There was a major storm that revealed one of the planes. Once you've confirmed the sync, click the Save Sync button. In the bin, the clips present a colored sync badge to indicate that these clips are now in sync. So the next step is to choose an in and out point for the A camera. Double-click it to load it in the viewer. Then trim the in and out points so that he has a clean in and out point around what he says. Click the Append Edit button to add the clip to the end of the timeline. Now that we have the A camera placed in the timeline, we want to be able to cut to the B camera angle and have it be in perfect sync. But we also need to see the B camera in its synced relationship to the timeline clip. This is where the new Sync Bin comes in. In the upper toolbar, click the Sync Bin button and you'll see both the A and B cameras stacked on top of each other. This is called a sync bin because when I move the playhead over the clips in the bin, the playhead in the timeline stays in perfect sync with it. Now that everything is in sync, we just need to find a place where we want to cut in the B cam. In the timeline, move the playhead over the cut point. To cut to the B cam, select the camera number on the left side of the bin to load it into the viewer. The viewer playhead is parked at the exact point the timeline playhead is parked. Notice that an in point has already been marked at this frame, and the out point has already been set 5 seconds from the in point. So Resolve is assuming that you'll want the B camera to appear at least 5 seconds on the screen. Before we cut to the B camera, select the Video Only icon in the upper left corner of the timeline. This will ensure that we only edit the picture from the B camera because the source audio is coming from the A camera. To cut to the B camera, click the Source Overwrite button. A source overwrite superimposes the B cam source clip over the A cam clip by placing it into a second video track. Let's play that back. To check out the area, and in 1979 there was a major storm that revealed one of the planes, and that plane has given us tons of awesome. Let's trim the B camera as it's a bit too long. Move the playhead just after he says there was a major storm. In 1979 there was a major storm. Then perform a ripple trim to the playhead, and everything is still in perfect sync. Keep in mind that if you move a sync clip from its location in the V2 track, either intentionally or unintentionally, the clip will flag you with a red sync badge in the lower left corner of the clip. Thankfully, this is an easy fix. With the clip selected, go to the Edit Actions menu and choose Resync Clip. In the next lesson, we'll refine our edit with some transitions, titles, and effects.